Welcome to Stories of Chazal. This story is about King Solomon Shlomo HaMelech. This is where we saw the peak, we saw the beginning, the spark of his wisdom as he was a younger person. The story goes as follows. This story was in the times of David HaMelech, King David, that there was a scenario that there was a person who was very rich, and he lived in like a desolate area. It wasn't really a city, it was more, somewhere far out. And he had he was rich, he had a lot of slaves, a lot of maidservants, etc., etc. In those days, it was considered, for the wealthy people. And he only had one son. So, as the son grew older, he wanted to teach his son how to do business, to at least give him chances and opportunities. So he sent his son on a boat with a lot of merchandise, and he let him go figure it out. And this boy, he went on a boat, this lad, and he went to do business. So what happened was, this child, he was, I'm assuming, old at this point, he went on the boat, and he ended up into a land, Eretz Africa, whatever that meant in that time, whatever Africa was referring to in that time in history. And he was there for many, many years. And over this time, what happened was his father he died. He was nifter. And at this point, he was already past teenage years already. And this father who died left all his riches to his servant, to his slave that, was basically in charge of his household. And he just left it all up to him. So this servant, eventually, with that power that he had, he became power hungry. And he started, taking too much control and by power all over the workers in the house. And he ended up driving everyone away. And he was left with all the riches to himself. He was just enjoying himself and partying with his life. So after many, many years, what happens, this son, who by now is already an adult, he's not a teenager anymore, he's already an adult, he comes back from his travels. And he's coming back to his home, and he's looking for his father, and he finds out his father actually died quite some years back. So he decides to go into the house, and this person was originally a servant, now he took over the estate. He starts pushing out this son, and he starts cursing at him, and he tells him, "Get out of my house, you crazy person." He starts cursing at him, etc., etc. So when this son is hearing this, he takes a stick, and he starts whacking this servant guy who took over it, what he believes is his estate from his father. He says, "Get out of here, you slave. I know exactly who you are. My father bought you, and this is what you do. This is how you pay him back. You took over all of his estate against his will. You made an embarrassment, a mockery of me and my father." And they had a massive fight, and it wasn't getting anywhere. Eventually, the son ran away, and he decided he's going to go to King David HaMelech, who was in power at the time. So this story evidently was happening in the land of Eretz Yisrael. And he told him, "My king, somebody, a very mean, evil person, took over my house. He took over my estate, and I can't figure out a way to save it." And he told him the whole story of what happened with his life, etc., etc. So the king, so fine. So they both come to the king. David HaMelech, King Solomon, was also a judge. He judged his people. He wasn't just a ruler, a dictator. He actually, tried to bring justice into his system. And that's actually one of the jobs of a king. So the king tells each side, "You guys have witnesses to prove your cases." And each side said no. So the king says, "Okay, go away peacefully. I cannot help you. I don't have a way to solve this problem." So when the son, who was the real actual son, he came, and he came to David HaMelech, the King David, and he started crying to him. He came to him twice, 3 times, till King David HaMelech, got sick of it. He's like, "I'm sorry, I cannot help you. If you have witnesses, good. You don't, leave. I can't do anything for you." So Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, who was actually quite young at the time, he heard what was going on. And he called this young son, the only son of the estate. He calls him, he tells him on the side, he tells him, "Hey, one more time, go and start, begging King David, my father, David HaMelech. And if he gets angry at you, tell him, if you won't, give me a proper judgment, you won't try to deal with my case, at least give it over to your son, Shlomo, Solomon. He'll be able to deal with it. So this son took Shlomo Melech, King Solomon's advice, and he went to David Melech and he told him so and so. And that's exactly what he did. He decided to give it over to his son Shlomo Melech to go ahead and decide. And it came to Shlomo, King Solomon, and he decided this is how he was going to deal with it. He said like this. He said to the actual son, he told him, do you know where your father is buried? And he said, no, I don't know where he's buried. He called the so-called slave, and he told him, do you know where the caver of your the burial place of your so-called father, because you claim you're the actual son? So he said, actually, I do know where it is. So he said, okay, go. I want you to bring an arm of your father, your dead father, your deceased father. Bring his arm. So he went, he cut off the arm, and he brought it to King Solomon, Shlomo Melech. So Shlomo Melech says like this. He said, I want now both of you, the person who claims to be the son, the person who actually really the slave and claims to be the son as well, I want both of you to draw blood. Draw blood from yourselves, put it in a utensil, and we're going to do something. An experiment. So that's what they did. So Shlomo Melech comes and he says like this. He tells the one who's actually the slave. He tells him, I want you to dip the bone into your blood. So he dipped it, and he took it out. And it didn't manage to color the bone. It just, I guess, fell off, etc. Then he said to the one who was the actual son, he said, I want you to do the same. And that's what he did. So he dipped it, and it managed to color the bone. So Shlomo Melech, based on that, on the differences, he decided on his own, and he said, you know what? He showed everybody who was around. He said, look at this bone, the colored bone, the one actually the color got stuck to. He says, the one that it actually got stuck to comes from this bone. In other words, this is his father. And everybody, was obviously astounded by this, by this idea. And eventually, based on that, this was his psak. This is what the judgment case that he managed to give. And he said, this is actually the son. And eventually he got back all the money, and he kicked out the slave, basically fired him, got rid of him. And it says the Medrash from here is what it says in the Sefer of Melachim. It's in Melachim Aleph, it's called, chapter 5, Pasuk at Aleph. It says, V'yachkam mikol ha'adam. And Shlomo Melech became more wise than all of the men. And this is how he began to see his wisdom.